Me again, and much like with Niall,
We've gone on holiday by mistake.
I've started making a video about the fall by mistake. And I'm not even drunk. I knew full well what I was letting myself in for, and only have myself to blame. The upshot, I need to surface for a little air and drop a quickie before I lose my mind. So here we go. A list today of 10 favourite concept albums. My last video about Luke Haines and the Auteurs touched on this, and Marky Smith dabbled with themes on some of the Fall's albums. Curious Orange would be a good example. So this kind of sort of bridges my most recent and my next videos. Plus it also works as a kind of meta commentary. Coming up with video concepts can be a bit tricky when the juices aren't flowing quite as freely as you'd like. So consider this my dancing in the dark. Yeah, a video concept about not having a video concept and then relying on other artists' concepts. So off we go, and at number one, I have got from 1984, Husker Du's Zen Arcade. What is to say about Zen Arcade? It's a double album. It's a punk rock Tommy, really, about a misfit kid's journey from an unhappy home life, out into the scary world of Reagan's America. Yeah, and this was, quite a big deal statement in the hardcore scene of the day. It's a double, it's a concept record. There are acoustic songs, there are psychedelic numbers, there are side-long kind of freakouts, and some of the greatest mould and heart compositions to date. Songs like Something I Learned Today, Never Talking to You Again, Chartered Trips, Pink Turns to Blue. Yeah, it's an enduring, a savage, bold, very chance-taking record that signposts the alternative rock boom of the 1980s. And not venturing very far away at all, for the next entry at number two, I've got Nova Mob, The Last Days of Pompeii from 1991. This was Grant Hart's second post-Huskers album following his solo album, Intolerance, from 1989. I think The Last Days of Pompeii is a much better record than the critics judged it at the time. That happened to, be just as grunge and, shoegaze were peaking, and, a folky, garagey, 60s influenced concept album just wasn't really very 1991. It tells the story of the rocket scientist Werner von Braun escaping Nazi Germany on a V2 rocket and being transported back in time to Pompeii in 79 AD to witness the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, only to awaken and find that it was just, all this kind of weird dream that he had whilst he was under the influence of a truth drug. That's the concept, but what it's really about, at its heart, it's about the nature of power and control and manipulation. And I think, like some of Bob Mould's solo work and some of his Sugar material, it's clearly raking through the wreckage of the Husker Du collapse, this time in a very highly stylized way. Some great songs on here. Getaway, that's Gateway in Time. The lovely Over My Head, which is absolutely prime Grant Hart, and kind of the slightly playful, oddly morose Lavender and Grey. Yeah, revisit this one, please. It needs and it deserves some belated love. And third on my list from 1989, I have Moss Side Story by Barry Adamson. Yeah, it's a pretty loose, but ultimately, I think, very influential concept that's been borrowed a lot over the years, namely the soundtrack to an imaginary movie. Mostly instrumental, it does feature a few high-profile guests scattered throughout. Diamanda Gallas, Roland S. Howard, Marcia Schofield, then of The Fall, Anita Lane, Mick Harvey, Kid Congo Powers. A cool noirish exercise that calls back to those classic 50s, 60s movies, those dark movie themes and tropes, and pitches them into modern day Manchester. Moving on to number four, from 2001, I have Lived to Experience, the Texas Jerusalem Crossroads. A long curtailed band. This their debut, their only album, a double, imagines the second coming transplanted into the promised land of their Texas home. A delirious mix of space rock, dream pop, lots of that post-rock, tension and release, and sack loads of religious imagery. There's very little else out there that bundles up what Live to Experience was selling into a single package like this, and manages it so successfully without coming over like, po-faced prophets. Yeah, strongly championed by Simon Raymond and Robin Guthrie of the Cocteau Twins. It was released on their own Bella Union label. Interesting note here for concept album fans. The track titles, they should be read as a single short poem. One line follows the other. It's a very nice touch. Yeah, and on a personal note, I saw them touring this album, and I did interview them for the very tiny fanzine that I was writing at the time. Yeah, they were a very kind and gracious bunch. Yeah, sonically, they were fusing, My Bloody Valentine style noise with that kind of, the big music feel, think U2, the Church, Jeff Buckley, definitely. It shouldn't work, but the concept and the forcefulness of the presentation completely sell it. Fifth on the list from 2006, I've got Liars, Drums Not Dead. I'll admit I've kind of lost track of these guys over recent years. They kind of lost track of each other, as I recall. Of that school of New York City dance punk, the post-punk revivalists of the turn of the millennium. I'm thinking, The Rapture, Chick Chick Chick, Death from Above. They were the first, I think, to really jump the rails and get fully weird. Between this and the preceding album, 2004's They Were Wrong, So We Drowned, they went full concept. They embraced the whole drum circle thing. And at the very least, they got a lot more interesting. Quite a loose, sketchy concept about two characters. That's Mount Heart Attack, symbolising doubt and negativity, and Drum, symbolising creativity and energy, and their battle for control of the music. It's odd stuff. Clattering, shadowy, multi-track percussion, ghostly, clanking, downtown, no-wave style guitar. I actually still really like this album of theirs. Check out the track A Visit from Drum for a flavour of this album. It's probably my favourite track here, and it's the whole sound, the whole ethos of this album in microcosm. Okay, hold on to your capes, people, because I am going prog. I will make this quick, though, which is not something you can accuse a lot of prog albums of doing. Yeah, okay. Cueing analytics, dropping off a cliff edge in 3, 2, 1. At 6, I have got Genesis. The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway from way back in 1974. Yeah, this is peak prog. That's the last Gabriel era Genesis, and yeah, it's one of the very few prog records I have any fondness for. Honestly, if you have a problem, squint, call it art rock instead, and you'll get through this. It's the tale of a Puerto Rican street kid losing himself on a spiritual journey through the New York City underground. But honestly, just check out that and enjoy at least the first disc of this double. It is the best disc, which has some great stuff on it. Much of it unruined by the overbearing kind of keys of Tony Banks. And he wasn't really properly engaging with this project. Tracks like Broadway Melody of 1974, In the Cage, and best of all, I think, Back in New York City and Carpet Crawlers. If it helps, Eno worked on this too. I mean, that's it. That's all I've got. We'll never speak of this again. Okay, I'm almost done with our dip into the 70s. Hold your breath. Just one more stop here, and that is at number 7 with Tubeway Army and Replicas from 1979. Yeah, the concept here is Newman's own, but it's basically cribbed from the work of Philip K. Dick with a smattering of, J.G. Ballard's urban dystopian stuff. Androids, authoritarian state control, overcrowded cities, musing on what it is to be human. It's all that good stuff. And honestly, during this period at least, who wasn't cheering for Gary? He messed around with a synth or two in the studio, loved what it did, and just slathered it all over this record, PDQ. And in doing so, he stole the thunder, I think, of a lot of these serious synth acts of the day. They were caught with their soldering irons mid-tinker, still trying to figure out how to sound like Kraftwerk. Yeah, the hits here have been played, replayed, sampled, and repurposed to bits, chiefly our friends Electric. But there's lots more great stuff on Replicas. Me, I Disconnect From You, the classic Down in the Park, and also a shout out for It Must Have Been Years. Yeah, coming forward a bit, but sticking with the sci-fi theme, at number 8, I've got Trans Am and Future World from 1999. Post-rock of a sort, a touch too ironic, for some maybe, but this album pretty much personifies, I think, the whole band as a concept in itself. And the Trans Am concept, it is kind of retro, futurist 80s culture, classic rock, soft rock, yacht rock, krautrock, synth pop, 8-bit gaming soundtracks, all of that writ large. I mean, I love Trans Am so much, I can just look straight through the artifice now and connect with the world they've built, well, rebuilt, I guess, without a second thought. And yeah, you could argue this isn't a proper concept album, but honestly, close your eyes and listen. If your mind doesn't self-organize a concept around the sound of this, then you're either too young, too cool, or just not trying hard enough. My advice would be try harder. My picks, Televisionize, the really smooth, kind of gacked out bliss of Cocaine Computer, and the incredible title track. Okay, change of pace now. At 9 on my list, I've got New York by Lou Reed from 1989. The last truly great Lou Reed solo album. I lean that way, but some might disagree. And it is what it says it is. It's an album about New York City, Lou's home. A very strong collection of songs that filter the horrors of the present day as it was. Things like homelessness, environmental concerns, the AIDS crisis, poisonous media. Yeah, all that gets filtered through the lens of life in New York City at the end of the 80s. Yeah, a decaying, hollowed out city, struggling to hold onto its soul in the face of rising crime and economic collapse. Musically, it kind of glides between chunky, hardened, very minimal rock and roll, tracks like Dirty Boulevard, Straw Man, and more hushed, quietly devastating numbers like Christmas in February or Last Great American Whale. I hadn't listened to New York in years until putting this video together, actually, and I was surprised, A, how much of it, instantly just clicked into focus again, and B, how little has changed in the world. And finally, and in a roundabout way tying in with the recent Auteurs video, at number 10, I've got Luke Haines. And it would be awfully easy to follow Lou Reed up with Luke's 2014 album, New York in the 70s, which is a concept about the music and art scene that name-checks all the big beasts of that place and that time, including Lou Reed. But I'm going to go off-piste a bit here to recommend his weird and oddly wonderful 2015 follow-up. That's British Nuclear Bunkers. Yeah, this is, a proper concept album proposing a post-apocalyptic Britain where what remains of the population have survived underground in the old municipal nuclear bunker network constructed during the Cold War. Yeah, but that's more of just like a starting scenario, if you like, much like the Baader-Meinhof project, to inspire a series of near-wordless, atmospheric mood pieces in the style of, John Carpenter soundtracks maybe, or old BBC library music that you would hear accompanying CFAX or, educational programs. Yeah, strong hints of the BBC Radiophonic Workshop on some of these tracks. Yeah, this album's quite an unexpected diversion from Luke Haines' usual style that serves up everything from doomy synthscapes to, jaunty intermission style music, with recorders and school choirs. And like the Baader-Meinhof project I mentioned, it's short but sweet, and it's quite charmingly kind of homemade sounding, particularly given the post-apocalyptic source material you're working with. And there you go. There's 10 kind of concept albums. There are many, many more of these. These were the ones that came to mind for me. If you'd like to, bring up some ones you think I've missed or some favorites of yours, then drop them in the comments below and we can all talk about it. As usual, please feel free to contribute in any way you like or can. Thumbs ups are always good. And why not subscribe if you like what you've seen. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. You take care and bye for now.